One thing is glaringly obvious to me. We are in an age of communication. And if you can't do it effectively, you're just going to struggle. In this episode, we're going to review my approach to effective and clear communication. And so hang around all the way to the end and you're going to see what I do and how you can implement it in your own business. If you've never been here before, welcome. I'm Jody Haar, Leadership and Management Coach. This is Velocity Leadership. Now, before we get started, I'd like you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all of our latest content. And at any point, if you get value in this video, go ahead and smash that like button. It does help out the channel. So before we get into the content itself, I want to share a quick story about how I learned the importance of being clear with communication. So I had just taken a role where I was managing a group of 15 technicians in Los Angeles. And while meeting the team, I found out that I was the only native English speaker in the group. I found out pretty quickly that I was going to be the one that had to adapt to them and their communication style if I wanted to get anything done. And I'm going to give you a quick example of how I learned this. So I had a technician working out on a job site, and we're trying to come to the best resolution for this particular customer. And we walk through it, and we come to a solution that I think is the best way to deal with this particular job and get this customer taken care of in the most effective way possible. So I rifle off to this technician 4 or 5 different things while we're talking on the phone, and I say, hey, you're going to do this, 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 and this. Tell the customer this is how much it's going to charge, and then you can go ahead and head out to your next site. I ask him, so are we good? He says, yep. I hang up the phone, and I think we're good. Well, I look over, and I'm getting a sideways glance from one of my coworkers. He looks at me, and he just says, bro, he has no idea what you just told him. You talk so fast that there's no way that he could keep up. And that was the moment when I realized I had a huge hole in my communication skills. I really needed to learn how to be clear with my communication and understand that it's really important to know how to communicate to different individuals. And that started me down the path that I'm going to share with you today. So as we get into today's content, I want to really just set the stage here as to what we're talking about. What are the most common used forms of communication in business? You've got your written, which is your email, your text, your chat, your actual handwritten documentation. You've got your verbal, which most of us use. It's your phone calls, your meetings, your presentations, your trainings, etc. And then I'm going to throw in a third, which is virtual. And while it's primarily verbal, I think we've all found that it's a very different skill set to do well. Now, over the years, I've really worked on all of these skill sets because each one is different and important for specific reasons. And now for today's session, I want to go over my method for building and running an effective meeting presentation. Now, the good news is this process that I've put together works for multiple formats and multiple audiences. So whether you're running a meeting, a training, a virtual event, or even if you're just writing up documentation, this process will work for all of those. Now, before we get into it, I have 3 goals for any presentation that I'm putting together. The first one is I want to engage the audience. If the audience is not actively part of the conversation, you're probably going to lose them and you're going to see them kind of phase out and not really pay attention to you. Number 2 is it's got to provide value. I hate meetings where I walk out of it and I've got absolutely nothing. It's just a huge waste of my time. It's a huge waste of everybody else's time. Just don't do it. If it's not a value-added topic, don't cover it. And then number 3 is have fun. The more you enjoy presenting and talking to the group and engaging with the audience, the more fun they're going to have and the more engaged they're going to be, and you're going to feed off of each other's energy. So have fun, enjoy the process, and enjoy being in front of the group. So who or what type of situation or audience does this work for? Online or offline, large and small groups, executives, small business owners, frontline employees, it really doesn't matter. This process just works. And it works because it's really just 4 simple steps. Number 1 is preparation. 2 is your outline. 3 is building your presentation. And 4 is practice. And then 4A, 4B, and 4C are all also practice. And we'll get into that in here in a second. Now, depending upon the detail and the length of the meeting or the presentation you're putting together is really going to determine how long this entire process takes. And consider the more often you do this, the easier and the faster the entire thing will become. Just like an athlete, the more reps you put in, the faster you get at it and the more natural it feels. Number one is preparation. And it's broken into a few different sections here. So I've got my topic. What is the topic that I'm covering and why am I covering it? I have to be specific on what I'm going to cover so I can grab and research the right information. Number two is what's my goal? I have to have a goal for this meeting. I have to have some type of outcome that I want to get out of it. Otherwise, what's the point in having the meeting? Number three is the audience. Making sure I know who I'm talking to so I know how to deliver the information. If it's a C-suite conversation, it's going to be very different than it's going to be for, a group of servers at Applebee's. Or if it's a bunch of frontline employees, or maybe it's middle managers, I have to know who I'm talking to so I can speak in a language that they're going to understand and they're going to get the most out of. The next one is time. How much time do I have allocated to this meeting? Is it a 10-minute section of a meeting? Is it a 30-minute meeting? Is it an hour? Is it a multi-day training? I have to know what my time duration is so that I can grab the right material and put it together. And keep in mind, you have to respect everybody's time. If it's a 30-minute meeting, keep it to 30 minutes. Don't go 45. If it's an hour, don't go an hour and 10 minutes. Keep to the time you have allocated. And then research. I want to make sure I have all of my materials. If I have to look something up, I want to do all of that ahead of time. And if I'm presenting data, I want to make sure, do I need graphs? Do I need charts? Any type of visuals to make it so that it makes more sense? Or do I need any additional pictures to help reinforce what I'm talking about? I try to grab all of that during my preparation phase. And then it goes on to step two, which is the outline. I want to outline all of my material. It's a rough flow of all of the topics I'm going to cover and essentially what I'm going to say for each one of those topics. I'm not going to have everything, but I want to know what I'm covering, when, and kind of what order. And write it down on a notepad or digital. It really doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. I personally use OneNote because it's easy for me to copy and paste from OneNote into PowerPoint. And then it's really important to build in your engagement points in your outline. So I talked about engagement earlier as one of the key things I'm looking for when I'm putting a presentation together. I want to have sections in there where I'm eliciting laughter because, hey, they're having a good time, or maybe I'm asking a question, or I'm having them ask me questions, or I'm trying to get agreement, making them nod their head. I want to build that into the outline so that when I transfer it into the presentation, I already have it built in, and I know, hey, this is the point where I'm going to ask questions, and this is where I'm going to engage with the audience. So as we get into the tactics behind building a presentation, a couple things. My personal preference is I don't like delivering somebody else's presentation. I'd much rather put my own slides together because it makes more sense to me. I understand what the flow is. It's more natural for me to deliver. I don't get stuck as often. So I would much prefer to put my own deck together when doing any type of presentation. Just me, but that's the way I approach it. Don't kill your audience with slides. Death by PowerPoint's real. I'm fairly certain I've had people die next to me during some of our 200 slide presentations that we've had to sit through. It's brutal. Don't do it. Keep it simple. The rule of 7 by 7, when you have no more than 7 bullets with 7 words, that's simplify your presentation. And we're going to get into that here in a second. And the real goal for me when I'm using a PowerPoint presentation or any type of presentation is to keep me on track. So that if I get kind of sideways based on conversations that are coming in or questions that are coming in, I know I can hit that advance to the next button or to the next slide, and I'll be right back on track to what I was talking about, and it helps me with my flow of what I'm trying to deliver. And then the second part of my use of a presentation is to illustrate what I'm talking about to the audience. So if I'm displaying data or some type of a chart, that it's on the screen and we can talk through it, but I don't want them reading it. I'd rather them pay attention to me and then glance at the slides. As we're building our presentation, there's a couple things. You need to pick a template that's going to work for you. Nothing too busy. Remember who your audience is. When we went through in the preparation part of it, understanding who your audience is, if you're delivering, say, to executives or high-level managers, you're probably going to keep it a pretty tame presentation format. You want to be able to have it clean so that you can display the information and talk through it. If it's a different type of group or a different type of event, and it's more cheerful, say it's a holiday, and you want to have more fun within your presentation, feel free to use it. Just make sure it's the right template for the right meeting. Now, getting into the actual tactics of how I put a meeting together. I'll go through and I start with 2 slides. I start with my title and I start with my agenda. And the agenda is simple. I take my outline, I copy all the topics from my outline, put it into my agenda. That gives me, hey, these are all the things I need to cover. And then I can go in and build out my sections for each part of that agenda. So pick the first item, build out the section, and kind of go all the way through my entire agenda. So I've got all the sections put together. And then I'll start filling in the bullets for each one of those slides. Remember, no more than 5 to 7 bullets, and keep the words as minimal as possible. I want to be able to look at the slide, understand, hey, these are the things I want to talk about, but I don't want people reading it and I'm not reading it. They should be paying attention to me as I'm delivering the information. The pictures and graphics should just be to help complement what we're talking about. Now, I've gone through, I've built out my deck, I'm pretty comfortable with all the information I put in it. It's time to start reviewing the slides. And this is when I bring out the machete and I just start whacking anything that doesn't make sense, anything that's duplicate, anything that doesn't add value. I started out with whatever the information is. I want to streamline as I get into this section of it. And then I also want to review my engagement points that I had in my outline. I put them into, hey, these are the different spots where I want to engage. Does it still make sense? Or do I need to review it and kind of move things around, or maybe change my questions, change my question spots? This is an opportunity to look at all of that. Number 4 is practice. And I've given literally thousands of presentations over my career, and I still practice. And the reason I do is because I've tried it. I've gotten cocky and I said, hey, I've done this so many times, I can wing it. And I'll throw a quick deck together and I'll not practice it. I'll go up in front of a room and I try to deliver the material, and it's horrible. The ending presentation is bad. My delivery sucks. The audience just isn't engaged. My message just falls flat, and it doesn't go well. So stick to this process and make sure you practice, because it makes all the difference in a good presentation and a really bad presentation. So as I've gone through and I've put everything together, I'm going to read through my presentation out loud. Does it sound right? Not just in my head, actually reading it out loud, because that's going to tell me, do the bullets flow from one to the other? Do the slides, I'm going from the first slide to the second slide, does that transition make sense now that I'm reading it out loud? Are there spots as I'm going through where I just get caught up? And if I get caught up, okay, maybe I need to change the wording. Maybe my bullets just don't quite make sense in that order. And this is my opportunity to rearrange my slides and edit and change my bullets as needed. And then once I'm done with that, make sure the flow of everything is comfortable. Now I take it to the second level of practice. So I've gone through the presentation. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I've read through it a few times. I've gone through it out loud. It makes sense to me. Now I want to practice where I'm actually going to be delivering the material. I'm a huge proponent of getting in the room if I have access to it, so that I can throw my slides up on the screen. I can walk through the audience. I can sit in the back of the room. Do the slides still make sense? Can I see them? Do I need to make any changes to my formatting? And get a good feel for the room. And then I can practice my delivery within that room. This is a huge win for getting you more comfortable with the space that you're going to be presenting in. And also, where are you going to be walking around? I don't like to stand behind a podium and present. I like to walk around. I like to engage with the audience. I like to, make eye contact, ask questions real close. I like to be part of everything that's going on. So this gives me an opportunity to feel that out. Am I going to be able to do those types of things? And if you can pull in a couple of people to watch you practice, it gives you a great opportunity to get live feedback and make any tweaks to the material that you may need to make with real people. And I'll run through this 2 to 4 times until it really flows naturally. And then I'll make any adjustments that I have to. I'll stop, adjust the slide if I need to make any more tweaks so that it flows better. And then, depending upon the importance of the presentation, I'll go through this 5 to 7 times, maybe even 10. It just depends on how comfortable I am and how important it is for me to deliver this information really, really well. Because I personally don't use notes. I don't like using notes. I don't like to have to refer back to them. I like to know the information. And the only way to do that is to be really comfortable with the material and practice so that you're able to answer questions and not get thrown off and continue on with your presentation and cover the material. And remember to have fun. One of the goals I set out at the beginning was to make sure I have fun presenting, because the audience is going to know if you're enjoying yourself or if you're not. If you're nervous, own it. Make a joke about it. Hey, I'm super nervous. I've never done this before. I've never talked to a group this big. I've never been in this type of room. I've never done this. Just get it out there. Get it off your chest. Let them all know. They're going to relax. You're going to relax. And then you can just have fun going through the rest of your material. But I promise you, if you follow this process and you go through and you put in the reps and you do the practice, you are going to get much, much better, and that fear of presenting will go away. I hated presenting when I first started because I was super nervous. I didn't like talking to people. I hated being in front of a group. But going through these steps makes it so that now I can take anybody that's never presented before, walk them through this, and set them in front of a group of people that, 10, 20, 30 people, and they can kill it every time. This process just works. To wrap up, communication is the key to success for anybody trying to run a business or a team. And so you're going to have to get comfortable with it. You're going to have to get good at it. And the better you get, the more productive your team's going to be in the long run. So learn to be clear with your communication and validate understanding. You're going to be glad you did, because it will save a ton of rework in the long run if everybody walks out of the room with the same understanding. I think we've all been part of those conversations where you're talking to your significant other and you think you understand what each other said, and you walk out of that conversation with two very different ideas as to what you just talked about. Imagine if you're in a room with 20, 30, or 100 people and everybody walks out of that room with a different idea as to what the next steps are or what you're supposed to do. So making sure that you're clear with your communication and what the expectations are goes a long way towards saving you rework and the additional work on the part of everybody else on your team. So comment below, what is your biggest takeaway from today's video? And if you're interested in learning more about communication or any other leadership skill, head over to 90dayleaders.com and get signed up for my free training. I'd love to see you over there. And thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next episode.